When it comes to dating and relationships, or even just your whole life, do you put yourself first, or are you super concerned with the feelings, needs, and moods of other people? In this episode, I'm talking about how to stop trying to figure out and anticipate the emotions and motives of the people you date and focus that energy inward instead. Stay tuned for a crash course in how to open up emotionally and let your feelings take up space, even when it's terrifying. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia, I'm a dating coach, and I'm sharing no nonsense advice for navigating modern dating with confidence and ease, whether you've been on dozens of dates or you're just getting started. I believe dating can be fun. And today's episode is going to be fun in that it's a more of a tough love episode because I see my clients and daters in this amazing community make one big mistake over and over, and it fires me up. And it fires me up because no one teaches us how to do this one thing, and that is advocate for ourselves and our emotions. Instead, we grow up learning how to make sure others' needs are attended and taken care of, and look, it's good to look out for other people and show consideration and care, but our relationships fall apart when one, we don't know what we need because no one's ever shown us how to figure that out. And two, we don't know how to communicate it because it's terrifying. So, today we're going to talk about how to date selfishly and how to shift your focus from navigating others' emotions to yours, to navigating your emotions. And this advice is going to sound a little selfish, but I think more people need to think about themselves in dating. You need to put yourself first. In fact, both partners do. It's the only way to be honest. And I think with the selfish thing, it's like we're already so in the people pleasing mode that we can lean more selfish and then it will balance out because we're so focused on other people in dating. And by the way, before we jump in, I just want to let you know that I am talking a lot about your needs in this episode. And when I say needs, I mean your non negotiables in a partner and in a relationship. If you want my guidance on figuring out your needs, you can check out my self guided course called How to Identify Your Needs. It takes about 40 minutes to go through, and the material includes journaling prompts and exercises to help you figure out what you need in a partner. It makes dating a lot easier and it makes communicating your needs a lot easier. So you can get immediate access to the course in the show notes or in my bio link on Instagram. My handle is at dating.intentionally. Okay, so I want to start with the pattern that we are trying to break here. Like, what is this big issue with focusing on your date's emotions or your partner's mood? What's the big deal? So, let's talk about how it plays out, and I think you'll start to notice what the issue is. All right, the first one is analyzing their behavior instead of thinking about yours. This is like when you're getting to know someone and you're like, why is he taking a whole day to text me back? Or why would she say she wants another date and then ghost me? Or why did they say they're into me but they didn't make a move? Right? These questions are valid, but they're dead ends because the answer is we don't know. We just don't know. And any reason we come up with is pure speculation and assumption. Like if you go to your friends and be like, I don't know why they didn't text me back, your friends are going to spill out a bunch of excuses that they're just making it up. They don't know. Like maybe their grandma died, maybe they're busy at work. Like we don't know. And while we're so focused on analyzing and figuring out their behavior, we completely overlook our own feelings, reactions, and actions in the situation and miss out on what it can tell us about ourselves. Because analyzing these things in the moment feels like we're getting somewhere, it feels like progress, but it's not because again, we don't know. We just don't have the answer and we have to be okay with that. So instead, we need to be like, wait, what am I doing? What am I feeling? What are my actions saying? Another one is trying to figure out how they feel instead of figuring out how you feel. So there's a lot of uncertainty in relationships, especially early on. And one way we try to cope with that is by fixating on how we think the other person feels to gain more certainty and security. Because if they feel good about how things are progressing, then we have permission to as well, right? But again, we're so wrapped up in trying to decipher how they feel about us when we're not focusing on how we feel, what our experience is, and if how the way things are playing out aligns with what we want. This is a problem. It doesn't matter how they feel about you if you don't like how they're treating you, you know? Another one is trying to predict their reactions. So, there have been times in my life where I spend hours and hours up at night when I should be sleeping trying to predict or play out someone's reaction to something that I really want to say to them or share with them, but it's a waste of time. We need to have some compassion for ourselves here because this thought pattern is like a way to cope with the anxiety and that comes with uncertainty. But we don't know how someone's going to react to something in reality. And of course, we assume the worst case scenario, which is abandonment, rejection, and stuff like that. But why don't we ever assume the best case scenario? Our minds like to prepare us for the worst. I think it's just like a survival thing. But this is an issue because while we're doing this, we delay having these important conversations and we're not focusing on what this is teaching us about ourselves. We're focusing on some projection, some prediction that isn't real. Another one is pushing your feelings aside to prioritize theirs. And this is a big one. It sometimes feels safer to prioritize someone else's needs and feelings above your own, like letting their feelings take up space and hiding our feelings so, they don't have to be burdened with them, right? Does that sound familiar? I still struggle with this. I feel like whenever I want to bring something up to Johnny, my fiance, I have a little fight in my head where one voice goes, he's just trying to relax. Don't bring it up now. And the other side's like, he's relaxed. This is the perfect time to talk about it. And then eventually I do bring it up because I follow my own advice. Okay. So, what happens when we push our own feelings aside and prioritize theirs is resentment. This is the recipe for resentment, and it's like poison for our relationships. In my last relationship, I used to literally feel like a physical feeling in my body when I felt resentment. It physically felt like my breath was caught in my throat, and it happened a lot. And I resented my ex a lot. And I am to blame for that because I didn't bring things up. And I was constantly pushing my feelings aside because that felt safer than bringing them up. And the last one is being scared to express yourself. So saying what you actually think and feel to people you care about, to people you are afraid may reject you, is terrifying. But if the person you're with never even knows what you feel, then you can't have true emotional intimacy and you can't grow in the relationship. I think about my relationship with my dad, and he has a ton of walls. Like, he has like mile thick emotional walls with me. We've gone backwards in our relationship. We've become less close over the years because we can't communicate our feelings and actually what we're going through and really what we're thinking. We have to stay above the surface. We have to keep this wall between us that he's put up. So, if you can't communicate, you will not grow. Being scared to share your needs, wants, feelings, and boundaries and all that makes sense because, like I said earlier, most of us were not taught to do this in the safe environment, but it also holds us back in relationships and it doesn't make us easier to be with. Part of us thinks, like, oh, if I don't have needs, if I don't say what I'm feeling, it's easier to be with me, but it's not. For a successful relationship to work, both partners need to express what they're feeling and going through. Advocating for yourself at first feels scary and risky and uncomfortable, but it's an important skill to learn ASAP. Seriously, if there is one thing to practice, it's this: speak up, stop worrying about their emotions and their experiences. They're an adult, and while yes, you can affect how someone feels with your actions and words, you are not responsible for managing their emotions and how they react. That is their responsibility. It's also so important to remember that advocating for yourself isn't mean. It's not malicious. Rejecting someone you're not into is honest, not mean. Telling someone you're too tired to meet and throwing out a different time for a date is honest, not malicious. Letting someone know you're not ready to have sex yet is honest, not leading them on. Yes, you can say these things in a mean way, but you don't have to. You're in control of that. Why would you do that? And while yes, you will make people feel all kinds of different emotions in the process of communicating, making them feel bad is not your intent. They're going to have a reaction, and that's part of the human experience. You can't predict how they will feel when you express yourself. And with the right person in that moment, when you share what you feel, that moment will bring you closer, even if it causes some pain, because it comes with understanding, growth, and a deeper bond. So, yes, you may say or do something that rubs your date or your partner the wrong way or confuses them or makes them upset. But at the same time, it's a chance for them to understand you better, show empathy and curiosity, and for you to bond. It's both. There is no growth in relationships if you don't share your feelings. You need to believe that your feelings can take up space. Yes, you will have to compromise in your relationships, but I think we are so scared to speak up, we are so scared to communicate that we end up getting into relationships that don't serve us because we're so focused on their feelings, their reactions, their thoughts, their interests in us, and we completely ignore our own. By the way, really quick, I just want to let you know that you can watch these episodes on YouTube. You can find my channel in the show notes or just Google Dating Intentionally YouTube and you will find me. You can watch all my solo episodes, my guest episodes. They're all there. I love being able to show my face on YouTube. So if you're more of a visual person, I'm there. Also, if you're on Instagram, you can find me at dating.intentionally. I would love to hear from you and how you are enjoying these episodes. All right, let's talk about why this pattern even exists. Why do we struggle with this? Why are we always focusing on other people's emotions and not our own? Why are we pushing our emotions down and not communicating them? So, on the surface, advocating for ourselves is hard because we're all scared of abandonment and we're very uncomfortable with uncertainty. Sometimes it feels easier to stay stuck in something that doesn't work for us than it is to change our behavior and speak up. And this is hard because we're scared of rejection and being too much. Here is what I've learned in like a decade of therapy and reading dozens and dozens of relationship books. Growing up as children, we don't have a lot of agency over our own needs. We have our parents who know what's good for us and they act on that and we kind of have to go along with it. We don't have a lot of say. And if we do communicate to our caregivers about what we need in any way, whether it's crying, talking, whatever it is, they may choose to ignore it, dismiss it, get mad, make fun of it, or something negative like that. And unfortunately, a lot of our parents had poor or unpredictable emotional regulation skills, which turns into us, the kids, feeling scared to communicate our feelings because we don't want to rock the boat. As adults, we're responsible for our own emotions. And unfortunately, some of our parents did not get the memo and kind of blame it on the kids. And as kids, we felt the need to be aware of and manage their emotions literally to survive, right? Because we needed our parents to survive in this world or our caregivers. But in adulthood, we pretty much no longer have to rely on our parents most of the time. We don't have to manage other adults' emotions like that to survive. So, this is why it's so hard. We have these things we've learned to survive and cope with things in childhood that then come with us into adulthood and we don't change them. And we're still acting the same way. But it's time for you to learn how to advocate for yourself. It's time for you to learn how to put your emotions and yourself first because no one else will. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to show up in your life and be perfectly catered to your unique past traumas and experiences and be able to just show up as that perfect partner. You need to be able to communicate out loud with words what you need in a relationship to thrive. There is no avoiding it if you want a good relationship. Even if you end up with the most amazing partner, you're going to have to do this, and it's healthy to do this. Relationships are a team effort, and the more you know about each other's inner worlds and emotions, the better of a team you'll be. So, to do that, you need to pay attention to your inner world. You need to tend to it. You need to know what your emotions are and where they're coming from and what's going on inside so you can better show up in your relationship and tell your partner what's going on so they can be a better partner to you. And hopefully, they can do the same thing, but that's not in your control. That's not your responsibility. They need to be able to do that themselves. So, this fear and anxiety around taking up space in our adult relationships stems from childhood or past traumatic experiences you've had with previous partners in your adulthood and friendships and other relationships, and sometimes all of it. But no matter what you've been through, you deserve to have your needs met and you deserve to give yourself permission to speak up. You can let someone know that their textile gives you anxiety. You can tell someone that you'd rather meet in the middle on a first date than drive to wherever they are. You can express your desire for marriage and kids in your future. Okay. Let these things take up space. You can say what you feel without blaming them or hurting someone else. Let it play out. Trust that it'll be okay. And trust that it'll be okay even if it's not okay, right? Even if they do have a big reaction. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Because these patterns and coping mechanisms and things we have to do to survive as kids are not necessary anymore. I told you this fires me up. Okay. So, what are we going for here? What is the goal? As your dating bestie, as your friendly podcaster dating coach, I want you to be able to feel the fear and do it anyway, which is one of my favorite mantras. Do it scared. Like you might always feel a little shaky and sweaty and like a little nauseous when you're telling someone something emotional and vulnerable, but that's okay. You can push through those physical sensations and do it. The more it works out and the more you get a positive or neutral reaction, the less you'll feel these physical sensations, but they might never completely go away. At least that's been my experience. And I've been in a relationship with the most calm, level headed person who just hardly ever has a big reaction to anything I say or do, like hardly. And I still feel a little shaky sometimes. I know what you might be thinking at this point. Do you care about their feelings at all? What about their feelings? Yes, their feelings, thoughts, needs, and desires are important, but it's not for you to figure them out. You are not a detective. You are not a mind reader or a psychic. You need to focus on doing 100% of your 50%, which is communicating your needs and emotions and boundaries in a respectful way. So, no, not yelling and screaming and being passive aggressive or acting out. Your responsibility is to manage your emotional state and be able to communicate calmly the best that you can. And it's really hard. Even with practice, you won't always get it right. And that's okay. We're not going for perfection here. It's just doing it. Their 50% is telling you their emotions, needs, and boundaries. If they're unable to tell you, that's not really your fault unless you've created an unsafe environment for them somehow. But that's all you can do. Encourage them to share, be curious about their feelings, give them the space to share, and make it safe by not judging and just openly listening. But if they don't talk, if they don't share anything, it's not for you to figure out. It's not for you to do that work. If they don't talk to you about their emotions, sometimes it's because they can't tap into them or don't know how, because they had never been taught, which is also not your job. And sometimes it's because they're so fucking terrified of doing it because everyone's scared of doing it. We're all scared of abandonment and rejection. Everyone, every single human, because it's like a survival thing. It might be a combination of both also. So allow people to do their best. Sometimes you have to accept that they're not as emotionally dialed in as you. I certainly have. I make a point to give my fiance daily space to talk about his feelings, and sometimes he has something to say, but most time he doesn't, and that's okay. He knows that when he needs to address something with me, it's on him to bring it up because I'm not a mind reader and he isn't either. I don't manage his emotions, he doesn't manage mine, but we're there for each other and we've proven to each other over and over again that we can be safe doing that. So I care a lot about this because it is a major pitfall in dating that's holding us back. And this is something we can control. This is something we can change. Like, we can't control who we see on the apps, and like if someone decides they aren't ready for a relationship like 3 dates in, all that stuff. But this is something we can control, our own stuff, our own reactions, emotions, feelings, everything. When you find yourself looking outwards, turn it around. Look inwards. And the reason why this is such a pitfall is that when we're focusing on other people and not on ourselves, we stay in the wrong relationships for too long. We people please our way into the wrong relationships with the wrong people. We stop people from really getting to know the real us. And we get hung up on our anxiety when it can all be cleared up with a simple conversation or a question or just acknowledging that they're not treating you the way you want to be treated and you leave. And then this is where people wind up in my DMs asking me why someone is behaving a certain way. And I'm going to just ask you, what do you want? And do you like their behavior? Those are the two questions you need to be asking, not why are they doing this? I don't know. You don't know. All you know is how you feel. And this applies to early dating. If you're in a relationship, you can absolutely ask about their behavior or something they said or did while also asking yourself if you like it. If you're confused by something, if you have a question, don't make assumptions. You can just ask them, what did this mean? What was going on here? What was going through your mind? What were you hoping to get out of this? You can ask. And remember, this always goes both ways. It's not your partner's job to figure out why you're upset or scared or feeling a type of way. It's on you to tell them. So you need to let people in on your experience if you want them to truly know you. Yes, it's scary, but that's why it's special. That's why it's so special, because when you actually can share with someone and they respond in a way that is nurturing and empathetic and curious and open and non-judgmental, that's when you know that you found something really good. And this is why we also focus on building trust, because you can't have that on a first date. Not necessarily, I mean, probably not, hopefully not. That's a little much. You need to get to know someone to build that trust and safety. So, how are we getting to this point? So, I'm going to give you 5 action steps to work on this, to work towards being able to advocate for yourself, to work on turning inwards instead of looking outwards for the answers. So, the first one is, when you are about to have, or you think you need to have a tough conversation, or you need to express yourself, or you need to say something to someone that is scary, try to see these moments as a test. You can test how they respond and see if they have a healthy, empathetic reaction or a dismissive or explosive reaction. This is an opportunity to connect. If you're scared of being too much, you've got to test that. It's like, maybe you are for them, doesn't mean you are for everyone, right? When you have something you need to say, this is the opportunity to really see how they respond and decide if they are healthy for you or not. All right, the second one is practice on your friends. right? You already have people in your life. You don't need a partner, or you don't even need to date to try this. You don't even need to date to do this. Like, let's just say your friends are making a plan you're not into. Speak up. If one of your friends made a comment that upset you, let them know. Don't analyze why they made that comment. Think about why it upset you and decide if you want to speak up, right? We've got to stop analyzing people. The third one is work on becoming aware of when you are so focused on the other person's emotions and experience and reaction. Then flip it around and focus on yours. What is my emotion? What is my experience? What is my reaction? What does this remind me of? What does this bring up for me? What fears are coming up for me? That's all information that you can use to grow and learn about yourself and understand yourself better. The fourth one is come up with a list of 5 things you can do to soothe yourself when you feel anxious. So, when you do find yourself hyperfixated on someone else's feelings, then you have this list. You can pull yourself out of it and center on yourself. So, that could be going for a walk, listening to a podcast. Thank you for listening. It could be watching a show. It could be calling a certain person in your life. It could be doing a little online shopping. I don't know, whatever it is to pull yourself out of that. And the last one is when you don't know something and you're trying to fill in the blanks, do these 2 things. One, figure out how you feel about it first. Don't fill in the blanks, figure out how you feel. Be like, okay, this makes me feel scared. Why am I scared? Because I'm going to lose them. Okay, what happens if I lose them? And just follow that non judgmentally. Just follow it. Then you can decide with that information if you want to communicate how you feel or if you want to ask them about their behavior, because you can do that. You can ask, what did it mean when you said this? Or you can say, when I don't hear from you, I'm telling myself a story that you're abandoning me. Or you could say, I can't tell if, you're still interested in getting to know me because I haven't heard from you in 5 days. You can say these things. Absolutely. You're not going to scare the right person away. I promise, especially when you're doing this. You're literally practicing healthy communication. If that scares them away, then you probably don't want them. I also want to add, in my journey, I went out with over 60 people in 10 months when I was 29 and 30. I got to practice this. I got to practice what I'm preaching right now with people I wasn't invested in, which made it even easier. I was still really respectful, polite, empathetic, and compassionate, but because I knew none of those guys I dated were going to be it gave me space to, I was like, I don't give a fuck about this. I'm just going to say what I need to say. I'm going to communicate my needs. And I knew that they weren't going to be it anyway. I didn't care how they reacted. And that helped me build that muscle. I'm not saying this is the only way to do it. Like, you don't need to be single and date people you don't care about to do that. That's just what helped me. Through dating, I learned to focus on and navigate my feelings. I learned to speak up for myself and say exactly what I need to say without being scared, because I knew the right person would happily be able to meet my needs. And he did eventually show up. I did eventually meet someone who responded in the way that I wanted, the way that I was looking for in a partner. And he also communicated with me. And it was like, cool, we can communicate with each other. I don't have to worry about his feelings. He's going to tell me his feelings, and I'm going to focus on mine. And that's what I want for you. All right, well, we're going to switch into dating dilemma and some of my personal updates. But if you have any thoughts on this, please DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally, or leave a comment below if you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube. All right, here is a new dating dilemma for you guys. If you want to submit a dating dilemma, you can do that in the show notes. There's a little submission link. It's anonymous. And who knows, your issue, you're probably not alone in whatever you're dealing with right now. So when you submit, it helps other daters feel less alone. So thank you for submitting. All right. I, 34 female, went on 2 dates with a guy, 39 male. We matched on Hinge. We didn't text too much, and I decided to be spontaneous and meet him the next weekend. We met and had a really nice time. We got along great, and the conversation was wonderful. He didn't text me after. I texted him 2 days later and asked if he wanted to meet again, and he said yes, of course, and we were trying to go decide where to go. And then he suggested that he would cook at his place. I said yes. We had a really nice time and chatted for hours and laughed and listened to music and got a bit drunk. We made out and I stayed over and left the next afternoon. Again, I texted him saying thanks for a great time and a great dinner. He said he had a lovely time too. We sporadically texted over the next 2 days, mostly steered by me. It's now been 3 days and I haven't heard from him. I know he had a great time, so this is confusing to me. I am refraining from texting him again. Why won't he just keep in touch and make a plan for date 3? All right, so this question is a perfect example of what I've been talking about in this podcast. Why won't he just keep in touch and make a plan for date 3? We don't know. We literally have no idea. I'm not going to like throw out these like fake assumptions or whatever. Like maybe he decided to take a spontaneous trip to Bora Bora. Like I don't know. Like we don't know. So the fact is he hasn't reached out in 3 days. Obviously, I don't have all the details here. Curious, what have you done? Have you reached out? And I know that you said that most of the texting was steered by you after your little sleepover. So I understand why you want or you're waiting for him to reach out to you first. Makes total sense. But the truth is, he's not. So you really have two options. One, you just keep waiting. Two, you reach out. This is where it comes down to. It's like, what do you want? Obviously, you want to get to date three. Fact is, he's not reaching out, which is not great, which means if you want to get to date three, you're going to have to reach out. If you don't want to do that and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take someone not reaching out to me for 3 days as a no, then that's also okay. But I want to make a comment about the great date thing. And here's the thing, a great date means nothing, especially early on. Great first date means nothing. It's what happens after that matters. It's so easy to be charming for a date. It's just a short amount of time, right? You can have the energy, you can have the charm, you can turn it on, and you can make someone feel like they're the only person in the world, and you can be romantic. It's easy. It's really easy for a lot of people, not everyone, but it's easy. Also, someone can have a great time with you and know that you're not compatible. Maybe they're not looking for a relationship or they don't know what they want. They're confused. They're getting over their ex. Like all these things can exist while someone's having a fantastic date with you. So, again, we don't know. I'm not going to try and pretend that we can fill in the blanks here, but I'm just showcasing how, like, a great date doesn't mean what you think it means. I know I don't love this advice because it's a little cynical, but it's so important to stay skeptical early on because it's like, "Hey, we had a great date. Let's see what happens next." Not, "Oh, we had a great date, so he should reach out for the next one." You never know. So I have an idea for a closure text for you if you are open to setting this. You could say like, "Hey, Dave," or whatever his name is. "I hope you're having a great week. I'm bummed to not hear from you after our night at your place, but I will take your silence as a lack of interest and I wish you the best." So that's a kind of closure text. That's not a like, "Hey, let's meet for another date" text. That's just like, I'm closing the loop here. And when you send that, you have to stand your ground. Like, you can't go back on it if he reaches out and is like, "Oh my god, sorry, I actually went to Bora Bora," and, like, randomly, you have to actually be like, "No, you know what? Like, I just don't date people who leave me hanging for 3 days." That's your boundary, right? So you have to actually enforce that. That's just one example of a text you can send. Or if you wanna shoot your shot one more time, you can be like, "Hey, Dave, how's your week going? Do you wanna hang out again?" Just see what he says. Good luck. If there are updates, please let me know. Speaking of updates, I have a quick one for you. So, Johnny and I celebrated our 2-year dating anniversary over the weekend. And it's so funny because it's like this was our probably first and last time celebrating our dating anniversary. Last year, I was traveling with my mom on our anniversary, which Johnny said was fine, but he still will jokingly give me shit for it. And so, this time we celebrated it. We also don't even know we don't never really decided what our anniversary is because we made it up. It's somewhere between us meeting online and our first date. It's like we kind of just were like July 15th. Like sure, something like that. So, anyway, what we did was really cute. Feel free to steal these ideas. Johnny made me breakfast. He got me flowers and wrote me a card, which was perfect. And then I made him a year in review slideshow, which I will definitely continue doing every single year, hopefully, but with our marriage anniversary. So we're getting married in like 2 months and change. And that will be what I do. That'll be our anniversary that we're focusing on. And I made the slideshow. It was like a year in review, lots of photos from throughout the year, different memories, different experiences we had, places we went, shows we watched, movies we've watched, all kinds of things like that. And it was so fun. And at the end, I was like, what will we do in year three? And that's what we talked about over dinner. We like went to a fancy dinner. It was super fun. And then we went home, watched a movie, and drank a bottle of wine. And it was like the perfect anniversary. And look, I don't have a great relationship with anniversaries. Like they stress me out. Anniversaries stress me out big time. And it's more like, what are they going to do? So I definitely had to have a talk with Johnny about how I'm sensitive about them. And he did a great job showing up for me. And I think I did a good job trusting that he would show up for me. Something interesting about our relationship is that we hadn't, in the first year of dating, we had not celebrated Christmas, or we hadn't celebrated Thanksgiving, Christmas, or our first anniversary together. Like we skipped a bunch of things. And so this second year, we actually did everything together: Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, and obviously celebrating the anniversary. Like, we had a lot of firsts in year two of our relationship, which is just interesting to me and like unexpected for what you think of how like a quote unquote normal relationship would progress. This just goes to show that there is no right timeline for things. Life is messy, weather happens, things happen, but it's okay. I also want to give you a quick shout out. Thank you so much for all the messages I've been getting recently on Instagram about the podcast. I'm just really glad that you are loving these episodes. They're helping you. That's all I want. If I could just help you a little bit with your mindset and dating, it means the world to me. I want to thank you for listening. Thanks for trusting me. I hope I help motivate you to start advocating for yourself more and stop focusing on predicting other people's emotions so much. Don't forget, you're doing great. I'd love it if you share this episode with someone who is navigating dating and might need a little confidence boost or some tough love. If any of these episodes have helped you in your journey, you can help me by leaving a stunning review on Apple or giving Dating Intentionally 5 stars on Spotify. I'd really appreciate it. Once again, I'm Talia. This has been Dating Intentionally, and I'll see you on Friday.